So I'm going to spend a little bit of time at the beginning telling you about myself, but not so much about my science. I'm going to tell you about my youth. And one of the things that really distinguished my youth was that I got in two major medical issues. When I was born, I had a birth defect. The doctors noticed it as soon as I came out, and this led to a lot of surgeries and a lot of time in the hospital. And about the age of 7, they had me mostly repaired, and I thought, well, now I've got that out of the way, I can go on and have my normal life. Well, then I got to the age 22, and I was driving down the highway on an interstate, and a drunk driver hit me in a head-on collision, and I did basically everything but die. So I had a number of broken bones, I broke both legs, my nose was torn off, I had a collapsed lung, I had a ruptured diaphragm. I was lucky. The doctors put me back together. And the first 2 weeks of this recovery process, well, I don't really remember much of it, to be honest with you. It was a lot of surgeries. I had 12 pints of blood transfused, had a ventilator. There were drugs that had interesting hallucinogenic effects. I guess that was one of the benefits. But I don't remember much of that. But after that, I started to get my senses back, and everybody said, well, he doesn't really have a lot of psychological issues out of this, and I really didn't. And there was one thought that was going through my head the whole time. It was essentially that no matter how bad it is, in 6 months, I'm going to get better. I'm going to be walking again. I'm going to make a full recovery. And it turns out I was lucky. I did. Within a year, I had pretty much doing whatever I wanted to do. And the only thing I really have to remember this is a few scars here and a few scars down. Well, maybe we're not good enough friends for that yet, but there's some other ones as well. So now I'm 50. And if you don't believe me, you can ask AARP. They just notified me. And I'm lucky. I'm healthy. But if I'm the average person, the average male, looking over the next 20 years, I've got some things that are not so good to look out for. I'm going to start getting chronic diseases. And by the time I'm 65, I'm going to have 3 or 4 different chronic diseases. We're talking about diabetes, Alzheimer's, adult onset cancer, cardiovascular disease. I can go on and on. And the problem here is that when you start getting those diseases, you generally don't make full recoveries anymore. The doctors do their best. They give you things to help you function as well as possible, but it's a slow decline. And that's really a depressing thought to look forward to. And it's not just depressing for the patients, it's depressing for the gerontologists that you're going to someday see, because they want to be the heroes. They want to give you back your full function, but that's not really what happens with aging. It's depressing for the caregivers. You know, it made Philip Roth in one of his last novels say, old age isn't a battle. Old age is a massacre. Well, I don't think it's that bad. But, you know, when you look back at the medical profession and how they treated me, I got the best of healthcare. I got great doctors. They had used creative strategies and state-of-the-art technology, and they saved my life twice. That's what we're good at in the medical profession. We're good at acute problems and emergencies. The US is good at that. But they're not so good at the other side of it, which is how do we keep you healthy in the first place? How do we keep you from getting sick? How do we do health care instead of sick care? And if you want to do that effectively, the best way to do it is to think about what are the risk factors for these diseases we're scared of? What are the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and cardiovascular disease? Let's deal with those risk factors. Well, I'm here to tell you that all of those diseases you're scared of, they have one thing in common as the biggest risk factor, and that's aging. And it's not just you happen to get sick when you get old. There are physiologic changes with aging that enable you to get these diseases. And that suggests that if we could go after aging, we could prevent multiple diseases at the same time. So what I'm here to tell you is that we're on the brink of a medical revolution. For the first time in human history, I believe it's going to be possible to target and slow the aging process. And so that's really what I'm focused on trying to do. And we need to do it, by the way. About 25% of the population is going to be over the age of 65. I mean globally. Think of all the suffering from disease that entails. And not just that, think about the effects on our economy. If we have that many people with high healthcare costs that are not working, it's going to be hard to pay the cost of that. If we can keep people healthy longer, extend health span, not lifespan, we can have a huge impact on both of those issues. And it's already possible in animals, even up to primates. We know how to extend lifespan by 20, 30, 40%. And there are multiple interventions to do this, everything from lifestyle to drugs to medical diets to supplements. These are all candidates for slowing aging. And my goal right now is to facilitate testing these things in humans. How do we find out which ones work in humans and find ways to keep people healthy longer? You know, we're on the brink of major scientific discoveries. This is a great time for science. Just this week, we heard that 7 new planets were discovered from a distant star that have Earth-like qualities. So that's exciting. But what's really exciting is that the technology is coming online so that in the next decade, it may be possible to really determine whether there's life on those planets or not. Extraterrestrial life, that's one of the great questions of all time. We're on the brink of a green energy revolution. And it's going to happen whether a few politicians want it to or not. And it's going to happen globally, and it's going to change the world. And I think slowing aging is on a par with those kinds of discoveries. This is the biggest major medical advance of this century, and it's possible. We already know that aging is malleable. You can change aging. It's possible to do it. Now think about the life trajectories that you typically have. You're born, you grow up, you go to school, get a job, maybe meet a partner, keep working, have some kids, switch jobs a couple times. Pretty soon you have grandkids, and then you start thinking about what's going to happen as you get older, and maybe you start getting sick. Everybody, this is ingrained as natural in everyone's psyche because it's thought to be a natural process. But what if you could change that? You know, I want to see like the 60-year-old person that just has a grandkid decide they want to join a rock band. I think these things are possible if we can really slow aging. I was doing a major medical debate, an Oxford-style debate recently in New York. And the question, you have a question in one of these debates, and you have to argue for or against. So the question is lifespans are long enough? And you might not be surprised to know that I was on the against side of that argument. And so we were having this argument, and this ethicist who was debating me said, you know, I'm not sure we want a lot of older people around because older people are conservative. They're not progressive. They're not innovative anymore. They're not doing the new things that we need for society. And, you know, I kind of had a negative reaction to that, but I hadn't really thought about it before. So afterwards, I went and really started to look at what the research on this is. And it turns out that in questionnaires and things like that, older people do tend to be more conservative. But there's a reason for it, and it's a very practical reason. It's that they feel like they have to live in the present because they don't think they have that much future left. If you start telling people when they're 80, what happens if you had an extra 20 years of health in your life? They start coming up with all kinds of creative thoughts. This is a practical issue. It's not a physiologic issue. It's possible to change this. Now, there's this old saying that if you're young and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. But if you're older and you're not a conservative, you don't have a brain. Well, I think we can change this. Because I think if we can really slow aging, what we're going to find is that we're going to have creative, experienced people that have a strong heart and a strong brain, and they're going to change the world when they get older. This is entirely possible. It's going to take effort. It's going to take some money. And it's really what I'm devoting myself to as a scientist going forward. Thank you.